Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome to the last of the current batch of AliExpress sale videos for the anniversary sale 2021. I said on Saturday when I released the top 10 best homages video that I had two of these Pagani Design Tudor Black Bay-esque watches on their way, and lo and behold they arrived this week, so I thought I would squeeze in a short review today in case you fancied buying one when they were on sale, or in case you'd already bought one and wanted to know what the watch was like. These are $149 normally, down to $120 on sale. I'll leave a link in the description of the video. I'll also leave a link to a $10 voucher. There's always a voucher on AliExpress. That takes it down to $109, which is the thumbnail price today. And as always with Pagani, you get a remarkable amount of watch for your money. Couple of rough edges as will be discussed, but I'm delighted to see the lume on this watch is the best of any Pagani that I've encountered, and the bracelet is also the best of any Pagani so far, so it definitely looks like they're moving forward as a company. Before I flip the camera today though, I would like to do something I don't normally do on the channel, and that is a birthday shout out to one very special viewer. My dad. Happy birthday, Dad. It is his birthday today, the 1st of April. What does that tell you? There he is with a young Jomwa tucked into his very 1970s body warmer, wearing a very 1970s Breitling Navitimer on his wrist. So thank you, Dad. Not only did I get my rakish charm and good looks from you, I also got my watch obsession from you. Have a great day. Take this in lieu of a card because I haven't sent you one. Let's flip the camera and get on with the review. A little bit tight perhaps, but what did you expect? He'll forgive me eventually. All right, let's get on with the review. Standard Pagani packaging, you've seen this a dozen times before here and elsewhere, I'm sure, and there are the watches. Now, I ordered these a while ago. I think they've updated them since I ordered them. I've got the crown stems on both of these watches having the red ring. I believe on the current crop of production units, only the heritage style, only this red burgundy style bezel insert model has that red crown tube, but do check with the listing before you order. I have long maintained that the photocopier is the hardest working thing in the Pagani design offices. Clearly it has been at work again today, but clearly it is not the Rolex catalogue or the Omega catalogue that has been utilised. It is the Tudor catalogue. But as is quite often the case with Pagani, they kind of conflate two different models. This is clearly a Black Bay homage, the original larger size Black Bay with that crown tube and the heritage colourways for a start. However, if you look at the dial pattern, it's got the square indices of the Pelagos mixed in there as well. So they've kind of mixed up a couple of different Tudor models. They did this with the Rolex homage with the relief bezel from the Yachtmaster that they insisted was not a Yachtmaster at all. According to the dial, it was an Explorer. Anyway, moving on, 42 millimeters in diameter, 14.5 millimeters thick, and 49.5 lug tip to lug tip. 22 millimeter lugs, tapering all the way down to 18, back up to 19 at the clasp, sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, and this one fits nicely as I'll show you later on. It weighs in at 163 grams, so I guess it could actually have been heavier. They could have gone up to about 175, I think, for this size of watch, so it is comparatively light. All stainless steel construction, case, crown, coinage bezel, very much like the Tudor. It's a nice coinage bezel. I'll show you that in a second. And full stainless steel bracelet. Now, I did say the bracelet was a good one. Solid end links, solid links with screws, and these are actually 5 separate pieces of metal. I'll show you that in a minute or two as well. And it is a proper mill clasp. Double security pusher, clicks in there, and 3 holes of micro adjust. They haven't gone too mad with this one, thankfully. Now the case finish, I did say in the intro this watch had a couple of rough edges, and I'm referring really to the case finishing here. It's not rough to the touch, it's all fine, but you can see the machining. If I turn it over to the opposite side, you can see the machining is different depending on which part of the case you look at. If you look at the middle of the case, its widest point, you can see a relatively fine brush, but you can also see kind of streaks towards the end. You can actually see the machining different from one end of the case to the other. Not not fantastic, not awful, but not fantastic. I've seen better from Pagani, to be honest. The rest of the case is okay though. High polished chamfered edge running down to the very tips of those lugs, brush finish to the upper surface, and reasonably well integrated end links. No shake or rattle there, which is great to see from a $100 watch. Pagani Design branded crown, screw down crown, 100 meters of water resistance, and you can see there it's a piece of double dome sapphire, but it's one of those concave domes, so you do get a nice bit of vintage distortion towards the edges of the viewing angle. It looks good outside. I'll show you it there later. Now I'll switch to the blue one to show you the bezel. It's an aluminium insert on all of these models. Looks good on this blue one. Nicely integrated there, sloping into that bezel. 60 click unidirectional, and listen to this. That's really nice. That's probably the nicest bezel action I've heard on a Pagani, and everything lines up as it should. Like I said, I've been asking for a long time for Pagani Premium, a $100 Pagani, which eradicates some of the quality control issues of previous models. This, I think, gets as close to that Pagani Premium as I've encountered so far anyway. And the bracelet is really good. I would not be complaining about this if it was on a watch twice the price. Nice fit to those end links, and it is an inverted mid link to the end link. So it's a chunky watch, but it wears well, drapes straight away to the wrist. And these links are 5 separate pieces of metal. How many times have you heard me moan that it looks like a 3-link oyster, but it's actually 1 link? Well, actually, this looks like a 5-link bracelet, and it is a 5-link bracelet. Plenty of spare links as well. I took 4 out in each to fit my 7-inch wrist, so I guess that's up to 8 1/4, almost 8 1/2 before you're resorting to a NATO strap or a rubber. And look at that, those little end pieces are entirely separate from the 2 outer links and from the mid link. Very impressive for $109. Now the first 4 links on either side are riveted and therefore fixed and non-adjustable. It then becomes a screw link bracelet. You'll need a small screwdriver for that. I've still got 2 of the adjustable links in, 1 on either side. I wouldn't therefore recommend it to anybody with wrist size smaller than 6 1/2. So between 6 1/2 to 8 1/2 inch wrists with this one. It's a fairly chunky screw-on display case back, helping with that 100 meters of water resistance. And there is the ubiquitous Seiko Instruments NH35 hacking and hand winding 24 dual automatic movement. I'm not going to bother putting this one on the time grapher. You've seen me do that a dozen times, I'm sure. Stated tolerances of -20 to +40, but most of them come in hovering around the +10. Great movement for the money. Let's get back to some macro and let's have a look at the dial. Now the dials are essentially identical on both of these watches apart from the colour. There is a black version and there is a black and gilt version to choose from as well. Applied indexes, now they've kind of mixed the Pelagos and the Black Bay. They've gone for that long pointing triangle at 12, large batons at 6 and 9, but they've gone for the Pelagos style square indexes everywhere else. There is a date complication at the 3 o'clock, just a bevel edge window there, but the whole dial has a diagonal waffle pattern to it. Again, just marking it out as slightly different from Tudor. Pagani design and the logo printed under the index at 12, and automatic water resistant, 10 bar 100 meters above the index at 6, and Japan movement squeezing in rather cheekily where the Swiss made would normally be. Printed minute track around the outer edge, and classic snowflake hands. I do like snowflake hands, I must admit. I know they're a Tudor signature, but I have actually retrofitted them to several watches over the last couple of years myself. The handsets are plain and flat, high polished silver to match the index surrounds, with a classic Tudor snowflake lollipop second hand. Now the in inverted commas heritage model has rose gold hands and indexes and a little bit of Fotina filling them as well. Which brings me on to the lume. I mentioned up front as well, the lume on these watches surprisingly good. It has usually been a bit of a failing with Paganis, but not in this case. Though as you can see there, quite different treatment between the 2 watches. The heritage style one has that old radium look, whereas the blue dial one has gone for 2-tone lume. It's a little bit unusual to be honest, but when we get to the end of the 20-minute test period, you can see both watches still clearly visible. So it may be a bit odd looking, but it works. And oddly enough, it wears just like the Tudor Black Bay. It probably wears closer to the original ETA Smile Dial version rather than the new, even taller, even thicker and more slab-sided in-house movement versions. Nice taper on the bracelet all the way down from 22 to 18 is appreciated, as is that inverted mid-link of the end-link. 49.5 is fairly standard for this size of watch, 42mm diameter, but the fact that it drops straight away is really going to help it fit a variety of wrist sizes better. Back to the burgundy for the overhead shot, no problems at all with legibility with this one. Big chunky dive watch, big chunky snowflake handset. And outside, I must say it looks pretty good. I like the piece of sapphire they've chosen. I doubt very much there's any anti-reflective undercoating anywhere near this watch. You probably need to pay quite a lot more than $109 to get that, but it is quite effective. I do like the distortion at the edges of the viewing angle. On wrist, it is a big boy, but at 163 grams, I don't consider it to be particularly unwieldy. You can see when you look down the wrist though, it does have that classic Tudor slab-sided profile. Moans and niggles, well, I have three, and you can guess the first one because I mentioned it earlier on. It is that inconsistent case finish and the fact that you can pretty much see the machining. You can pretty much see where they have cut that stainless steel. It's not awful and it's not rough to the touch, but I've seen it done better by Pagani on other watches, put it that way. My second complaint pertains to the clasp. It seems I'm always complaining about Pagani design clasps for one reason or another. It's actually alright, this one. I quite like that raised bit and the Pagani design name there in landscape. 3 holes are micro adjusts, 4 would have been ideal, but 3 is not too bad. I am complaining, however, about the diver's extension. No Pagani, just no. Nobody is going to take this watch diving. Nobody is going to wrap this around a wetsuit. It just creates a weak point and it creates a little bit of rattle, a little bit of extra noise here, which a standard spring bar would have eradicated. Not the only watch to have done that. My $1,000 Doxa 200 sub also had one of those flimsy diver's extensions for 10 times the price, but I moaned there and I'm going to moan here as well. And on this heritage style model, the Fotina is a little bit overdone, I think, on the hands particularly, and the indexes. There's a bit of colour mismatching going on between the hands and the indexes. It looks alright, but they could have toned it down a couple of notches, I'm sure. But hey, that's not bad really if I've only got 3 things to moan about on a $110 watch. So if you're into your homages, if you like this style of watch, but you're bored of Rolex and Omega likes, why not have a look at this Tudor? And if you missed the sale, don't worry, there's a sale on AliExpress every couple of weeks. You can wait for the next one. So there you have it. If you fancy your Pagani design homage with Tudor flavouring, this one is really rather good, I reckon. Case finishing notwithstanding, a little bit rough there in terms of the way it looks, not the way it feels. You can see the machining, but apart from that, this one is quite impressive. Bracelet very, very comfortable. The loom is remarkably good for a $100 watch, and it has all the inherent design problems that the original one does, i.e. it's a bit slab-sided and it's a bit top-heavy, but it does wear quite nicely on that decent bracelet. Thanks for watching. Happy birthday again, Dad. I'll see you all in a future video.